So what are the best dividend stocks in Australia right now? In this video, I'm going to tell you my top 13 stocks, but I'm not going to just tell you my top 13 stocks. I'm actually going to take you through in choosing the companies that I chose. So you will be able to see my process starting from choosing all of the companies within the ASX 200 and going through them one by one and getting their dividend yield and just overlooking their dividend graph just to see how stable they are, whether they're growing, whether they're decreasing, if they're too erratic. So you'll get to see my methodology and how I choose stocks. And of course, at the end, I'm going to go through the top 13 that I found and the reasons why I chose them. Now, as I'm going through this, you're going to probably say, Tracy, you don't have to do all of this by hand. There are ways you can filter through your trading program on just the top high dividend stocks. And yes, that is true. I just prefer doing it myself one by one. That way I can go and look at each company individually. And yeah, it's going to take a bit more time, but I actually think going through and doing it yourself, you'll learn a lot more and you get a feel for companies more. So the indexes in Australia, the ASX 200, the ASX 50, all of the others, they're usually updated quarterly, and there was just a recent update. So I thought that this would be a great time to go in and pick some new stocks. So let's get into the research. So first we need a list of all of the companies within the ASX 200. Now I generally only choose from the ASX 200. Sometimes I'll go to the all odds if there's not a company that's paying in a particular month and I really just want to expand, but generally I stick to the ASX 200 only, and I choose that index because it's the highest capitalization stocks within Australia. So they're the biggest companies, they're usually the most stable. There's usually a lot more financial information on them, and so you can make a better, more informed choice the more financial information that you have. I've never really been interested in smaller companies because I just feel that the risk is too high. Sure, you can make a lot of money on some smaller companies. I'm just not interested. I'd rather stick to the larger companies, which is why I only stick and usually only buy within the ASX 200. Plus, I just don't want to sift through thousands of companies. 200's enough. So where do you find the list of the companies within the ASX 200? Let's go and I'll show you where. A quick and easy place to go to is Wikipedia. You can go in and they basically just tell a little bit about the history, and then all of the companies within will be listed here. You can just grab that as a table if you want. I do find that often the Wikipedia page isn't updated as much. Like as you can see here, the last update that they've got is the 1st of March 2019. So this is a little out of date. So I generally don't get a list here, but this is a nice easy place to grab it from. But generally where I get it, asx200list.com. So here's the list here, and the reason I like to grab it from here is because I have an Excel spreadsheet I can just download, so it makes it a lot easier. So I'm just going to press download, and then I'm going to open that up in my spreadsheet, and then we can go from there. And I just opened it up in Google Sheets. It's nice and easy. Now the only things I want to keep are the code and the company. You can keep the sector if you want, but the rest I don't really care about, so I'm just going to delete all of that. I'll just open up these a bit more. Anyway, we'll just bold this so we know it's thing, and then we're going to look, next thing we're going to look for is dividend yield. Now we're looking for dividend yields over 5%, and so this is a slow going thing. We're going to have to actually go through and find out the dividend yield of every single company within the ASX 200, and I'm going to put the dividend yield here. So I'm going to go do that now. The first company is Abacus. They have a dividend yield of 4.2%, which is a good dividend yield, but I want 5% or more, so that is a no from us. Then we go on to the next one. Adelaide Brighton has a dividend yield of 4.9. Again, not high enough. Still a great yield, but not for us. Afterpay Touch is a new company and they just don't have the information, so again, not for us. The very next one is AGL, has a dividend yield of 5.5. So yeah, we found our first over 5% dividend yield. And if we look at the chart, the dividends have been increasing beautiful. So we found our first great dividend stock. This is AGL, it's a utility company. So I'm going to put that in. It's 5.5%. Perfect. And as you can see from the chart, it's slowly increasing just beautifully. And so it is a winner, so it's also increasing. Perfect. And I'm going to keep doing this until I get all of the 200 done, and then I'll get back to you. So I finished inputting all of the information, and I've only included those companies that pay above 5%, and I've also if they've been increasing or if it's been slightly erratic or stable. And if I've noticed something special, like there's a special dividend, and that might be why the stock chart is not stable, or maybe they only started paying dividends recently. So I've just got all of that information. The next thing I'm going to do is just delete all of those other companies that don't have a dividend yield over 5%. So I'm going to go and delete that now. I'm going to sort by column D. So I'm just going to delete all of these companies that I'm not interested in. Then we'll go through the companies that are left and see which one is going to be the best ones. I'm not going to just include all the ones that are increasing. There could be some that are stable but slightly increasing. I'm also going to look at franking credits, that sort of thing I'm interested in if they have franking credits. Not all of these will have franking credits. While I'm here, I might as well show you some examples of what I mean by increasing dividends, decreasing, whether it's unstable or not. Westpac's a good example of a company that is stable. I usually only look at the last 5 or so years, and from about the 2014 they've been very stable. They're not increasing, but they're not decreasing. If we can have a look at their dividends over the years, you can see that they've been pretty stable. There was a slight increase in 2013. Yep, there was. So it's definitely a good stock, but I do like a stock that's also increasing, and I'll show you an example of one that is increasing. So here's Stockland. They're an example of a company. They're only increasing slightly. They've been stable 2012, 2013, and they're starting to rise here. Yellow just means the upcoming dividend that they haven't actually paid out yet. And if we go down and look at the years, we can see that they've been stable for quite some years and they're slowly increasing. So that's a nice steady increase, which I like to see. Fortescue Metals have a strong dividend yield and they're franked, which is great. But if you can see from their chart, their dividends are all over the place. 2019, they look like they've increased their dividends quite a lot. I don't know if that's any special dividends within that. They seem to be improving over the last, since 2016. Could be that, is this a mining company? I'd say that they've recently found something in their mines, and that's why their dividend is increasing quite dramatically, but they're just too unstable. I just don't know what I can expect in the future, so this wouldn't be a company that I would put in my best recommendations because I'm not confident in what they will do in the future. Genworth Mortgage, it's an example. I wanted to show you this one, even though it's got a high dividend yield and they're 100% franked. Their dividends have been dropping quite significantly. There's a very steady downward decline there, and if you go and look at the dividends over the years, you can see that, yep, it's dropping quite dramatically. It was really high in 2015, still high in 2016, but it's been slowly dropping. I've gone ahead and highlighted my top 13. That's not to say that any of these other ones are bad, and I actually hold a lot of the other ones as well. It was just that these are the ones I think are the best right now, and if I was purchasing right now, these are the ones I would definitely look at. So we can go through all of them in detail. If you want to know why I chose these particular companies, I mean, it's going to be pretty obvious. They've got a strong dividend yield. Most of these are franked, which means you get the tax benefits, and most of these have either stable or increasing dividends that are going to probably increase in the future as well. First, we have Illumina. Now, I've chosen this simply because the dividend yield is crazy high, and while they're not as stable as some of the other companies I've chosen, they are 100% franked, which I like, and the fact that I mean, I just can't get over the dividend yield. This is probably not going to be a long-term dividend stock, simply because I don't think that they can sustain this higher dividend yield for the long term. But for now, you might as well enjoy that sweet dividend yield for the next year or two until they decide they can't sustain that anymore. Second one I've chosen is IFL. Again, high dividend yield, franking 100%. Look, they've been pretty stable in the last 5 or 6 years. I can't imagine that they're going to do anything crazy. This is something that they probably can sustain, this dividend yield over the long term. They're a financial company and I quite like financials. And I think they're being pretty stable. I can't see them doing anything crazy. This is my second choice. My third choice is PGH, Pact Group. Again, they've got a high dividend yield. The franking is only 65%, not 100%, but their dividends over the past 5 years that they've been paying, so they started paying in 2014, have been quite stable. Now, this is another one that you're going to have to keep an eye on. I don't know what they're going to do in the future. Right now, they look pretty good. The franking I wish was 100% instead of 65, but the dividend yield is pretty high, and so far they've been pretty stable with their dividends. NAB is my fourth choice, high dividend yield, 6.8, very stable dividend yield. As you can see, in 2019, the last dividend yield was a lot lower than normal. I would imagine that this is just a one-off and that they're going to continue being stable. Again, they're 100% franked, high dividend yield, and very stable. Pendle Group is my number 5, high dividend yield. They're only 10% franked, but with the high dividend yield and the gradually increasing dividends that they've been having since 2014, I really like them. I think they're going to continue on that upswing for their dividends. I can't see them changing. I mean, if they do, it's something to keep in mind. But at this stage, they seem very stable. Apart from the franking credits, which I wish would be higher, they're actually a pretty good company. My sixth choice is Westpac Bank. The dividends are 100% franked. They got a dividend yield of 6.6%, very stable. They were rising from 2010 to 2013, but now they've stabilized, so you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to be getting that nice 6.6% over the long term. They're not growing, but a lot of banks don't grow, and a high dividend yield is more than enough to offset something that is or isn't growing. So that's my pick for number 6. Number 7, I've got Spark. As you can see from about 2012, they've been growing very nicely. Now, they've got no franking whatsoever, so you're not going to get any tax credits, but the fact that that curve is just gently swaying up really makes me excited. I like it a lot. The dividend yield is great. Spark is my next one. Charter Hall is my number 8, high dividend yield again, not franked, but if you look at that curve, they're super, super stable and they're slowly increasing as well. So I'm super excited about that. Super stable dividend, sweet yield, nice stable company. Number 9 is Stockland. Dividend yield is still sweet. So there's no franking in this. You're not going to get any franking credits, but the dividend yield is high enough that I'm okay with that. The stability curve is just beautiful, and it's been increasing since about 2015. I really like Stockland. Number 10 is Bendigo Bank. We've got a nice sweet dividend yield again. Franking is 100%. Yay! So you're going to get those tax credits. And of course, look at that sweet, nice, stable upswing on the dividends over the past, well, since 2010, really. They've been just slowly increasing. Bendigo Bank, really good. Number 11, Australian Pharmaceuticals, my first healthcare company that I've have in my list. I don't usually recommend healthcare companies simply because I don't understand healthcare all that much, and generally they don't pay dividends. But this company does. They pay a nice sweet 5.8% dividend yield. They're 100% franked, and that curve is looking nice. Now it's a little bit unstable towards the end, but it's still increasing and it's still high. First healthcare company. Macmillan Shakespeare is my number 12. They have a nice dividend yield, of course, 5.7, 100% franked. The curve is a little bit over the place around 2013, 2014, but they seem to stabilize since then with nice increases every single year. And my last pick, number 13, is AGL. Dividend yield, 5.5%. They're only 80% franked. That's just about there. Come on, AGL, go the full 100%. But that curve of that sweet increase over time, especially since 2017, makes me excited, makes me pick it in my top 13. Now that was a lot of information to get through. I hope you found it useful. Like I said, the companies that I didn't choose doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. Some of them are great companies. Some of them I hold. There's plenty that I didn't include that I actually do hold. Those were just the ones that stood out to me as great stocks right now. So if I was looking to buy right now, I might consider them. But of course, if you are buying stocks, do your own research and due diligence as well. You want to know what you're buying, and doing your own research, you learn a lot more about buying stocks and what's a good company anyway. So it's really good that you could go in and do it yourself as well. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.